Welcome to the second episode of the SCSG Podcast. My name is Rikki. I'm an intern at SCSG, the Silberman Center for Sexuality and Gender, and I'll be hosting today's episode. This episode will feature an interview with Jenna Frasier, a previous intern at SCSG in the 2019-2020 academic year. They agreed to talk with us about their new position as the recipient of the Edie Windsor, Marsha P and Sylvia Rivera LGBTQ Fellowship. This is a valuable conversation for any social worker, activist, or liberation seeker. Enjoy! My first question for you is, how did you feel when you found out you were chosen?
It was I felt a lot of things. I think excited and proud. And I think a lot of that really does connect to like the kind of legacy that's in the name of it. That's the Edie Windsor, Marsha P and Sylvia Rivera LGBTQ Fellowship. You know, and definitely for me as a Black person, you know, as a queer person, like gender queer person, that's just like really special to have like these two really powerful queer trans women, like right in the name of my title. You know what I mean? So I feel like that's an entrance to make into a space of like, oh, okay, this is who you are.
Yeah.
Give my like, you know, my piercings and tattoos and shaved head and give it away. Like this is who I am. Like, I was excited about that. I think as an opportunity that doesn't always really go hand in hand with like government. You know, I think in my head, so I'm like, oh, okay, this seems like it's going to be a really interesting opportunity because the legacy and the history of these women is they were like, let's fuck shit up. You know what I mean? You're not seeing us, you're not seeing my community, you're not seeing our needs. So you're like taking that head on and like taking up space, which like for us as queer folks and like brown queer folks, like that's something that's so important, right? That we take up space and that we really make the needs of our community known.
Absolutely. To all of that. Thank you for such a detailed answer.
I'm having my coffee right now, so I think it's starting to hit. So if at any point I'm like talking too much, be like, okay, can we transition to the next question?
No, please. Take up space. Talk. No, that's what we're here to do. The next question I have is, can you describe your current occupational position now with the fellowship? What type of work are you engaging in with the Chief Diversity Officer?
Sure. Yeah. So last week was my first actually official week, which is exciting because last week was also Transgender Awareness Week.
Right.
So that felt like a really special time to start too, like on a very concrete level. Like it was a nice way of like introducing myself and like my pronouns to people in the office. It's like, oh, it's Transgender Awareness Week. Also, I use they, she pronouns, you know, and they're like, oh, okay.
Yes.
In terms of just like what my position has been like so far, like a lot of it has been just sort of getting used to being in the space and like really absorbing things and kind of understanding the layout of this, you know, executive chamber. I think that's like this fellowship is also kind of like a crash course in some ways in like the levels of government and all of that, because I'm working with the Chief Diversity Officer, who's Julissa Gutierrez, really, really great person. And she works within the governor's office, right? So we're like within the executive chamber. So there's lots of different positions, briefers, there's the different deputy secretaries, chief of staff, like all types of people. Like part of your job almost at the beginning is just to like get to know people, you know, like get to know the lay of the land and the space.
Right.
So that's, I think, definitely part of it, like relationship building, meeting people, kind of understanding how all of these positions fit together to help make government run. Also last week, which was super exciting, on Tuesday, there were actually 2 bill signings I got to attend in person. So one of which was this bill that basically makes it so that folks can use their chosen name and pronouns in utility bills or like phone bills and that kind of thing. You know, so it's, in some ways it sounds like a simple thing, but it's a bill that will actually have a real big impact on people's day-to-day lives. So there was that, and also the START Act was signed into law. START stands for the Survivors of Trafficking, Attaining Relief Together. This bill is really cool because it also helps, you know, if folks have different charges or things like that have come out of trafficking, this helps them get a bit more relief in terms of getting those charges dismissed or dropped and all of that. So it was like pretty great. That was my second day on the job. I get to go and basically see the governor sign these 2 bills into law. So that was I think that was like super inspiring. And that's, you know, hopefully part of my role will really be looking at the different types of legislation or bills that start to come through and that are pushed by electeds to see, like how will this have an effect on the LGBTQ plus community, right? Like what are the community organizations and advocates saying about this? Like who's supporting this bill? Like a lot of it really does go back to the grassroots work that's happening. None of that can really happen unless you have the power of people who are like out there at rallies or protests or hosting events or community drive, whatever it is. But like you need that energy on the ground of people saying, yes, this is what we need. This is what's going to make our lives better, improve, whatever. And, and that's ultimately what gets you that power to really push so that you can get these types of things passed into legislation.
How would you describe the importance of this fellowship to someone who's unaware this exists?
I think some of that goes back to the relationship between like organizations or grassroots doing this work on the ground and government and sort of our systems that help take some of what they're pushing for and put it, into action through legislation. To me, sort of how I've been approaching this role or how I'm hoping to approach it is like being a little bit of a bridge between those two worlds. My background is community work. And a lot of that was power building in a way as well, because the groups were about like consciousness raising, talking about issues in their communities, how that's impacting them, particularly considering the systems that are at play and how those impact their lives. And so now I kind of look at myself in this role working within government, right? It's very much working within the system that impacts a lot of us. You have folks that are like at the head of the protest, leading the charge, all of that. And you have folks in systems, you have lawyers, you have people working within these different government agencies. And we need all of us, right? Like we need everybody in this collective struggle for liberation. I'm on this side of it now, like I'm working within this system. So how can I still, with my values intact, with how I envision like our collective liberation, how can I help bring that into the space? It's also looking towards the future too, right? In this space, you can like help create legislation and get things passed. So like, what are those things concretely that are going to help us move and evolve and get to that space where we can lead lives that are truly equitable? There's so many different ways to make change.
Also, I just been like nodding the whole time. Like you can't see my face. I'm like smiling. I'm like, I'm just sitting here nodding and smiling.
Yes.
No, this is great. This is awesome. My final question is, are there any people, friends, family, or communities you would like to thank or acknowledge in the name of your success?
Yeah, I think part of it, like the community at Silberman, particularly folks like Jenna, who helped connect me to this type of opportunity and also like helped create a space to grow in. I was formerly an intern in your position. And so I got to work with Jenna and SJ, which was great. And I think that in a way like really prepared me for this role, like working in a space, SCSG is technically like its own organization, but then it's still within Silberman. And Silberman is within Hunter. So it's these big systems that you're kind of within. And I think that in a way also relates to government now too, right? Like I'm in one chamber that's inside of this bigger governor's office, which is inside of this larger system. But they all have to work in relationship with each other. That was really helpful. And I would say super thanks to them. And I think too, again, kind of kicking it back to like the ancestors, Marsha and Sylvia who are there. I'm like so excited to decorate my desk at work. I'm like, I have these beautiful portraits of them on my desk so I can see them every day. Because part of it really is a reminder of just the fact that I can even walk into this space and show up like truly as I am. The reality though, right, for like so many queer folks, and in particular, I think too, like for, again, like gender fluid, gender queer folks, trans folks, we're always aware of the spaces that we're in. And so I think about them and I think about what the lives that they live, both the struggle and also like the joy. So many pictures you see of them too are like these big smiles or like beautiful flowers looking fabulous with other people around them. Feel really honored to hold that with me and like carry that legacy, and for me a really big part of what pushes me and helps me to think about the future.
Thanks for listening. That's the end of our episode. If you want to learn more about SCSG, check out our social media on Instagram and Twitter at SCSG_SSSW, or go to our website at silbermanscsg.com. Stay tuned for future episodes around gender, sexuality, social work, and intersecting topics. Bye now!